So, in about a few months, the Nintendo Switch is going to turn 6 years old. That is the normal lifespan of a game console. Can't you believe that? And the Nintendo Switch had been a huge success, and it managed to outsell the Xbox One in a few years. And I'm shocked of how successful it was and how fast it sold. It managed to outsell the Xbox One, which came out like years earlier in a span of a few years. That's pretty damn impressive. So I was watching RGT's 85 video, and he was predicting about the next game console. And he brought up that it could not be a Nintendo Switch sequel. And which makes me think to myself, I think it's obvious that the next Nintendo console is going to be a sequel to the original Switch. And the reason why is, think about the Nintendo Entertainment System, okay? When that came out, it was a huge success. It got out of the video game crash. So Nintendo made a sequel to that console called the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Well, in terms of the name, then when the GameCube came out, Nintendo didn't make a GameCube 2, which came out after the N64. There's Super Nintendo, N64, then GameCube. Nintendo GameCube wasn't as a financial success for Nintendo as the PS2 or Xbox, because Nintendo made the stupid ass decision by making the games those small discs, and the original Xbox outsold the GameCube, which was a new competitor in the game console wars. And let's go back through the handheld side. Let's look at the Game Boy, okay? The Game Boy was a huge success, selling over millions and millions of units, and became one of the longest lasting consoles, right next to the Atari 2600. The Game Boy lasted from NES, Super Nintendo, and N64 and GameCube. That's how long the original Game Boy lasted from the 80s, the late 80s, through the early 2000s. That's fucking insane. And the console, the reason why it sold so well is with Tetris, because it got old boomers who thinks that, oh, video games a child thing, or oh, video games a brain rotting thing, and the game Tetris brought old boomers to the Game Boy. That's what made the Game Boy successful. And Nintendo made the Game Boy Color, which technically is its own mid-gen variant or something. It could be a next-gen console or not, the Game Boy Color. And then there's the Game Boy Advance. Nintendo made a sequel to the Game Boy. Then think about the Wii, okay? Now let's go to the Wii. When the Wii came out, people got into the Wii because of cool motion-controlled gimmicks, like, wow, I can swing motion-controlled dildos around. Woo! Not that the Wii's a bad console, but it's a very easy console to make fun of. And it got old boomers that think video games is a brain-rotting thing to do, or oh, video games for children, and it got people outside of the gaming community into Nintendo got people outside of the gaming community into the Wii. And And it became a fad. It faded dust, and hardcore gamers strictly played the Wii only for Nintendo's exclusives, like their Mario games and all that. And third-party developers got pissed off that the system was underpowered compared with the PS3 and Xbox 360, but the Wii still sold well because of old boomers and soccer moms and reality TV show moms and those type of people. And it got those casual market until they moved on to mobile games. Then the Wii was lucky, it was a success, so they made it the Wii U, which is a sequel to the Wii. And the Wii U sold only 14 million units, and so the Wii U flopped. And then the Switch came out, and it's a success. So what I noticed with the trend of ever since the NES, whenever Nintendo has a successful console with a successful name, like the Game Boy, they're gonna make a sequel to that, and that's the Game Boy Advance. So I'm sure that Nintendo's next console, it could come out in 2024, it could come out in 2025, that the Switch is going to have a sequel system. It's not going to be the Game Box or whatever system it's going to be called or whatever. It's going to be a Switch sequel. Because in the past of how Nintendo names their consoles, the thing is that the way Sony names their consoles is very predictable, because Sony always sticks with the name PlayStation, and they just simply number them. The PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, 4, and 5. They could do something unpredictable, like name the PlayStation 6 just the PlayStation. Like, this is the reboot PlayStation. Kind of like how Atari names the Atari VCS, which is what the old name for the Atari 2600 before the Atari 5200. So, like, Sony and Nintendo for me are the most predictable. You can predict their consoles' names the easiest. And what I think Nintendo should do with the next Nintendo console is obviously make it more powerful, but make it just capable enough, have the power of a PS4 Pro or Xbox One X. At least have the power of that. At least, because Nintendo makes underpowered systems for the past 15 years, and hopefully the next Switch won't be another Wii U. Hopefully they learn their lessons from the Wii U. Maybe they might not call the next Nintendo console the Switch 2 or something like that, because the Wii U failed. I don't know, but again, this is the Film Buff Gamer Guy signing out. Have a good one.